Hey viewers, welcome. Great to have you join us back today for an exciting episode on tidying up space. Now, what does tidying up space mean? Well, for those of you who are joining in for the first time, what does renewal and renewalism mean? Why is there this book next to me? So, just to pull back a little, Renewal is a book written in November, December last year and launched last week. Now, it's about the renewal of human consciousness. It's about how there are just 30 habits that we can adopt to renew ourselves at mind, body, spirit level, renew our relationships with others, with money, with abundance, with the planet, with actually saving the planet, and renew systems and the man-made order of the world, which has disordered the natural order, and how we have a great role to play in changing those systems, some of which has been forced upon us thanks to the COVID crisis. And we have seen how by changing systems like telecommuting and so many others, I'm not going to go into detail of that, we have brought uh, the betterment of the planet in a visible sense. So it's interesting that this book was written in December, and I was into editing it in January, February when the COVID crisis appeared on the scene. And by March, I found that a lot of the habits that we had been forced into are the ones that have already been talked about and documented in this book. And so, on a kind of urgent basis, we brought this book out, and it's available on renewalism.com. It's also available on Amazon. And speaking of renewalism, just a short bite there, and you're going to see it in the streamer running below your screen. This is what promises to be a movement where people adopt those habits. Yesterday, we had a vegan ambassador with us, and we were talking about how, in a short span of half a century, since the time it was conceived, and in just about 10 years since the time that it got popular over the internet, veganism has become a lifestyle change that has brought about a huge change of consciousness. Now, that's a lifestyle change brought about because we are concerned about not exploiting animals. But what about not exploiting other humans? What about not exploiting our own consciousness? What about what is our consciousness? Those are subjects that renewalism concerns itself with. So I invite you to be part of this movement. But meanwhile, because we have 30 habits every day at 9 p.m. India time, we have a very special guest with us who's going to discuss one of these habits. And today we're going to discuss the practical aspects of what it means to tidy up your space. Now, let me bring on Sahil Mehta from Dubai. And joining us instead of the book is Sahil. Hi, Sahil. Good to see you here. Sahil is a decluttering coach.
Hi, Sandeep.
And
Lovely to meet you.
good, good, good. We hear you well and clear. Audience, if you can hear us and see us well and clear, just say a little hi there. Now, Sahil is a decluttering coach. And yeah, thanks for your highs. And we are going to talk about what does it mean to actually have clutter. So, Sahil, my first question to you, in the context of what we're talking about tidying up, is why are we untidy in the first place? What brings that about, and what does it really mean to be addressing that sort of an issue?
So, Sandeep, thank you. If you can imagine, if you remember those old prison movies where they used to have that ball, that heavy metal ball and chain wrapped around your leg, when you have
Yeah.
clutter in your life, you essentially are having a lot of these balls and chains around your leg. So, if you're trying to run, achieve new things, reach new heights, make a change, how can you expect to do that when you have so much weight that's holding you down? And the whole concept of
Wow.
decluttering is to start cutting away at these balls and chains so that you can become lighter. You can start running. You can start running, sprinting, jumping, and flying, and reach all the heights that you wish to.
Well, that really sounds awesome. But how do you know that everybody's got these chains?
How do you know it? It's one of those things I always tell people. If I look at my own life, I thought everything was great, and it was only when I started becoming aware about things that were holding me down and started removing them, I realized how much better life could be. So in some cases, you already know it. You feel there's too much. Let's say in your house or your apartment, there's too much clutter everywhere, and that's kind of draining you. There might be clutter between you and a loved one or a dear friend that's affecting your relationship. So you feel it. You feel it in your gut, if that's the best way to say it. So it's all about feeling the energy rather than thinking with the mind.
Awesome, 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 awesome. So, that brings me straight to something out of the book, which I'm going to read for the benefit of our viewers. He says that it's fascinating how in everything there is a trinity of body, mind, and spirit. And the first thing is the body, because that is the physical aspect of us. So when we talk about cluttering up, or rather tidying up space and decluttering it, we're talking about what we are doing around with our body. And I thought that's very interesting, because a few days back we had a discussion about time, where we were talking about how tidying up time is about tidying up the mind and the way we perceive it, the way we clutter up our time. We just pack it up with things that we haven't budgeted for. So likewise, now when it comes to, you made a very interesting point about there is noise in relationships. Can you elaborate on that a little?
When you have, whether it's parents, whether it's spouse, children, colleagues, or friends, sometimes assumptions are made, or there's a lot that is unsaid, and that results in clutter between the relationship. So for example, you might have come into the office and said good morning in a certain way, and I might have assumed that, why is he saying it in this manner? It's, he's being a little rude to me, but I don't address the situation. And that's when the clutter starts to, get watered, the seed gets watered and it starts to grow. And then next thing you know, it affects our relationship, right? I used a very simple example, but we all have relationships where there's something between us that's preventing the relationship getting to the next level.
Right, right. That's the beginning of those chains that are holding us down, those metal balls, right?
Absolutely. Let
How
me
do
give
we
you a very
detect
simple
them?
example, Sandeep. Let's say you're facing me and I draw a big number 6 on the floor and we're facing each other. I'm going to tell you it's a 6. You're going to tell me it's a 9. And we can potentially keep arguing with each other till the end of the day. But all we had to do
Right,
was try to understand from the other person's perspective, right? I mean, just that simple
right.
solution could already resolve any animosity that could build up between us. And think about all the times in your life with loved ones or deep friendships where you have been stubborn or they've been stubborn and not understood it from the other person's perspective. And that's how then, affected the relationship in a negative way and hence built clutter between the two.
So that's very interesting, because you are actually bringing something very subtle into becoming something very tangible. And could you give some more examples of that, and also more examples of stuff that is already tangible, like closets and stuff, and how that kind of drains us, because that's something that is mentioned in this book as well, and I'd like to have your take on that.
Absolutely. So, look, everything that you own occupies space in your mind or subconscious mind, right? So, imagine the things that are bringing you joy and have functional purpose in your life. That's great, right? You're happy to have them because it's having a positive effect. But anything that doesn't have a functional benefit in your life or doesn't give you any sort of joy, think about it. It's
Hmm.
occupying space in your mind rent free, but with no benefit. So why would you keep anything? That's the worst business decision, right? Why would you keep anything rent free if it doesn't give you any benefit? So how about we start removing those items and think about it? We can make such an impact on other people's lives, because people who are less fortunate than us can receive these from us. So essentially, we're putting a smile and bringing joy to their life. And we're creating space in our mind to allow in anything that we wish, whether it's more love, more time for hobbies, for spending time with family, whatever it is for you. You're creating space to bring in something new.
Awesome. Awesome. True, true, true. Go on. This sounds really interesting. In fact, these days with people at home, are there any some special tips that you can give about getting to start this decluttering habit?
Absolutely. I'll share with you what we did. So we actually ended up decluttering 5 rooms. Now, if a room seems overwhelming, pick a section, pick a cupboard, pick a drawer. But what we do, and this is what I'll share with you, is we take everything out, right? Because inside it looks all neat and doesn't look like much. So we take everything out. Then you realize how much it actually is. Then we split it into 3 piles. The first pile is something that you're using regularly and you put that back in. So let's assume we're talking about a cupboard. You put those items back in. The second pile is, I can't remember the last time I wore this, assuming it's clothing. If I haven't used it for more than 6 months, why do I actually own it? Now, okay, if it's for a special occasion like a wedding ceremony, that's a different story. But if it's regular clothing, why is it in your cupboard if it's not being used for the last 6 months? So perhaps we can start giving that to someone else who's less fortunate than us. And the third pile is when you seesaw, you're not sure whether you want to give it away or keep it. So in that case, I always tell people, ask yourself, because they say, oh, but there's a memory attached to it. I say, does the memory disappear if you give the item away? And the answer is no. So your memory is always going to remain, regardless of whether you have that item or not. And other people say, oh, I used to fit in it, and now I don't fit in it anymore. So I tell them, look, if it's motivation to get you back to a particular size, keep it. But if it's causing you stress and anxiety and you feel depressed every time you see it, why would you keep something that's bringing you down, bringing your energy levels down? So, maybe it's time to give it away. And if you're still having a challenge, just put it inside a box and put that box away. And if you don't open that box for another 3 months, you really have to question yourself and say, why am I keeping it? Because if it's not being used, as I said before, it's occupying space in the mind. And right now we want to get rid of the things that have no purpose in our life so that we can put into that space that we free up whatever brings us joy and happiness.
Awesome. That's the bottom line, viewers. We live our lives in pursuit of joy and happiness. And if we find that stuff that we've bought and we just kept away is impeding that joy and happiness, we are better off without it. And I think Sahil's given you a very interesting 5-stage process to get rid of it. Can you relate it with our energy? Because that's a word you used very interestingly. It sucks your energy. There were a couple of comments that came in which I had displayed. You may not have caught that, but I think you created quite a stir there because Renu says that never realized that clutter in the cupboard can cause clutter in the brain. And Minu says that people are often unaware of their own unawareness. Now, this is where I thought your aspect of energy would come in. How do you get aware that you are unaware?
Wow, great question. The technique that I always use is I ask myself always that, does something add value in my life? Meaning it's bringing joy and it's bringing positive energy in my life, or is something, because if it's not bringing joy and anything positive, it doesn't necessarily have to take energy away from you, but it's also not doing anything. If it's neutral, you have to question, why is it there in the first place, right? So and what I noticed, and this is the thing that I really want to share with people, is as I started to give away things, not only was I impacting someone else's life in a positive way, but I started to feel lighter. Because no matter how many things you own, even if you don't think about it all the time, like I said, it occupies space in your mind. And taking an example of a car, you have to service it, you have to fill it with petrol, you have to clean it. So every item that you own requires effort. And when you start giving it away because it's no longer serving a purpose in your life, guess what? That's less work for you, less clutter, less energy, and more energy towards other things.
Right, right, right. Now I have a question about something that plagues a lot of people all over the world, I'm sure. They have these things that they are attached to because they are saving it up for a special occasion, and that special occasion never comes, and that stuff just remains there. You think it's giving them joy, just having it there, or is it just occupying space? What's your take on that?
I really believe it's up to
Like
the
China.
it's really up to the individual, right? I mean, but I always, this is the question I ask myself, and is, when was the last time I used it? If that number gets longer and longer and longer and bigger and bigger and bigger, at some point I have to say, I have to draw the line. If I've not used it for 6 months, for 1 year, for 2 years, I mean, at some point you have to ask yourself, why is it there? Because if it's China, for example, you have to clean it, you have to take care of it, you have to make sure the kids don't touch it. And if they do and they drop it, you get upset and angry. Imagine over a material object, you're getting angry over something with a compassionate, beautiful child, right? So, what, if anything, it causes you more stress than joy. So, why are you keeping it?
Quite a point, quite a point. Now, Kenna has got a point here about precious things. The more attachment we have towards the things, the more we spend thinking to whom I want to give the thing. So we think they will value it as much as we do, but maybe it has no value to them. So that's. I mean, you're so keen to give things away, but others don't perceive them as precious. How do you decide what to give to whom, and whether it's going to be valued at all or not?
First, you're not just giving it and telling them to take it, right? You are offering it. It's an offering. So if someone likes it and they're happy to take it with a smile, great. It's going to add value in their life and bring them joy. If it doesn't and they say, I don't need it, by all means, we don't want to take our clutter and make it someone else's clutter, right? We want to make it someone else's joy. So find someone who can use it, right? And we all know lots
Right.
of people and everyone has different preferences. So find the one person or people that can benefit from the item that you would like to give away. It's all about it's not, you definitely don't want to add clutter in someone else's life because that defeats the whole purpose.
True, true, true. I'm going to come back to another point which arises from this excellent point about awareness from the book. He says that if you want to grow your consciousness, start by building the habit of examining the little mess you make on your dining table mat or on your bathroom mirror every day. With awareness, aim to reduce it, annul it. Then expand that circle of consciousness. Look around your room. Is the garbage bin the only place litter can be found? If not, develop a habit of making that the only place where you put your garbage. This is the delta improvement every day. In Japanese, it's called Kaizen. And if you get a little better, a little bigger in your awareness circle every single day, then in a month, you would have revolutionized both your thinking and your life. So, Minu, I hope that paragraph also helps you. It goes on to say that when you do something like that, you start getting more sensitive about what, for example, is organic garbage and what's inorganic garbage. And at least at our place, we started doing this because it makes it so much easier for people to process. People at the receiving end, they're truly recipients of garbage. But when, for example, you are putting your food, the home delivery food, which comes in these plastic containers, if you're putting that unwashed in the inorganic bag, what's happening is that there are organic deposits of the food, the curries and all that, which become terribly stinky. And so your awareness has to go to that level where you actually wash the plastic before putting it in the inorganic bag, and make sure that whatever you're giving away for recycling or whatever with very good intent also does not cause problems at the other end. So I just thought I'd bring that little piece in. And
So Sandeep,
shouldn't we
I just like to
just
add, I love your point that you just made, and it's about those little improvements every day. And what happens is, with each improvement, you get the momentum to go on to the next improvement because the difference that you're making in society, in your family, the energy levels, it gives you the momentum to keep going and go deeper and deeper and deeper and widen your scope, right? You start with the one room, the house, the community, the city, the world.
right? Right. That's the practical aspect of it. I just put a question up here which says, shouldn't we just get detached to what we already have decided to give?
You have to be detached with the items you're giving because if you're giving it away and then the next day you have regret and then it actually brings, you know, why did I give it away? Or, if you're like holding your head, you're complaining, you're upset, the whole effect, it gets nullified. And then you're probably not going to do it in the future. So you have to be at peace and detached from the item with which you are giving to someone else. Absolutely.
Fabulous. So that's the practical process that you decided that, all right, I haven't used this for 6 months, so I'm ready to give it away. But first you work on detaching yourself, and then you give it away to somebody for whom it is not going to be garbage. It's going to be useful. And by doing so, you're raising your energy. And by doing so with that Kaizen kind of approach, that Delta improvements I have you talked of, you are going to make those habits sustainable. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Fabulous, fabulous. So we are kind of into 20 minutes now, Sahil. Is there anything some last piece of advice that you'd like to leave our viewers with?
Sandeep, I always like to share a very short story, and that is, the sailor went to the captain and said, "Captain, when can I get my pay?" And the captain said, "Come tomorrow." The sailor the next morning gets all excited and went to the captain and said, "Captain, Captain, can I get my pay today?" And the captain goes, "Didn't I tell you tomorrow?" So, my friends, my fellow citizens, tomorrow never comes. Start today, implement today.
Awesome, awesome. That couldn't have been more appropriate. Today that we are in the lockdown these days, you've got that extra time to just get into your closets, get into your rooms, get into your cupboards and everywhere, and start releasing that energy and using that for reducing the noise which you have in your life, which could be manifesting between you and others, with you yourself, and just see how it starts creating a lot more contentment and happiness. And with that wish of happiness, I'd like to sign off for today. See you again tomorrow at 9 o'clock. We have a very, very interesting talk by one of Asia's top startup investors. And what could a startup investor bring to the Renewalism show? You're going to have a very interesting twist to it. So be there and find out. Thank you, Sahil. Thank you, audience. Thanks for being here today. We'll sign off
Thank
for now.
you.